Hey, David.
Well, noise can be like several different things. I mean, God, I call some of Philip Glass's stuff noise. But I think it's a necessary outlet for a viable music.
When you listen to sound as much as you listen to music, see, there's a difference, I think. There's a big difference between listening to what most people, quote unquote, think of as listening to music, and listening to sound is different. You're not listening for melodies, you're not listening for rhythms. Just listening to the purity of these are shit terms, when I hear myself talk about them, but just the qualities of the sound itself.
Texture, primarily, I think is the shift over for new waves of textural music as opposed to harmony and regular things, which are also there obviously, but rhythm and harmony, but now it's all about timbre as well, more particularly about timbre.
It's sort of anything that isn't rock music or classical music or techno or something that has like a specific purpose, like something.
Maybe music that makes people shake their head, like a lot of people go.
Makes people absolutely disgusted or revolted or entranced at the same time.
Well, I equate noise to basically in that you have alternative musics, but noise I think is basically the alternative to music. In that, say, what happens in noise is that, obviously everyday life is filled with noise. And basically I think as a aesthetic of art, noise is an opportunity to bring that out.
Often just out and about, you'll hear something and go, wow, what's that? And this is why you need a mini disc or whatever strapped to your face and you never take it off. But you might be walking down the street, walk between two insects, and it'll change, the sound will change heaps as you go through them. And that's great.
The interesting thing about birds is if you listen to them, probably not all the time when you listen to them, but sometimes you can hear them. I was listening to them once, and it was really quiet, and one of them was making deep bass sort of sounds, a woo woo, and then the other ones were making more of the high pitch, a woo 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 woo.
Obviously we're living in an industrialised age. There's sounds of course there's nature, there's sounds of birds and the breeze and wind and trees rustling and all that sort of crap, but there's trucks going past and noises and things that you could incorporate into
the wheels, and when you're sitting in the bus listening to the wheels,
Noise is related to everyone and everywhere kind of thing. You deal more with noise than music.
I don't like conceptualizing it as noise or sound art really. Now, reason being, noise has the connotation that a negative connotation, and it doesn't need to have a negative connotation, because some of the things I do people consider to be noise, I consider to be quite beautiful, and then there are times when I do use noise. Usually that's for an emotional effect. Sound art is just a wee bit more intellectual than I like to go. I don't really like to make academic sort of chin stroking music.
What do you mean by noise as well? Is it full on harsh sort of Merzbow sort of onslaught, or is it little twinkly ambient sort of sounds
I guess experimental music, maybe.
Noise is a very broad umbrella heading for sure, but then experimental music is as well, and then when you get something like experimental music, a lot of what I do I don't think is you know, other people say, oh yeah, it's because this and this and this, but you know, I pretty much know what I'm doing in the way, you know, like I'm going to get some drones, I'm going to get some loops, and I'm going to throw them together and whack some delay over the whole lot, and then, oh wow, look, it's a big spacey phasing wall of sound. Wow, shock horror, I never would have guessed that. You know, but then, you know, where do you draw the line with that? You know, what's an experiment?
We didn't really know what we wanted to do.
Yeah.
And for some reason, we just started doing feedbacking, weird, noisy stuff.
It started off with Ross, Jeannie and I, and Ross was really into experimental music, and that's the first I'd ever heard of the whole concept of noise or anything. And, so we sort of were playing around with that, just hitting things in dictaphones and stuff, and fast forwarding and making them take noise.
Originally for an assignment for a multimedia subject, which went really well, and I still got a recording of it. It was a 17-minute piece that was just completely narcissistic and evil and competitive. And Lloyd Barrett and I were friends back then, not necessarily musical collaborators. And on that first piece I used his voice. That led off into a collaboration between Lloyd Barrett and myself called Puta.
I had some acid one night, and I listened to Mike Patton's Adult Themes for Voice and Sucked Orange by Nurse with Wound, and I decided that I wanted to have that much fun too. And that's it. That was the start of making noise.
Mike Patton was a big influence. Scorn, Mick Harris was probably the influence that got me into sample music and out of metal.
Oh, well, the Beatles, number 9, back when it was released.
I mean, I'd heard stuff like that, Beatles, Revolution, number 9. I remember someone playing the noise end bit of that to me like years ago.
Then bands, the more kind of rock bands from England, like really early Genesis and Yes, and Gentle Giant, King Crimson, bands like that. But my first taste of really full-on stuff, noise, would have been SPK back in probably 79, 1980. And before that, Cabaret Voltaire and Throbbing Gristle back in 77, 76, 77.
UFO or Die and Boredom's sort of offshoots. But yeah, more sound art, like read this book called Lipstick Traces, and it came with a CD, and it had some sort of sound phonetic poetry by letrist artists. But I didn't really like that much, but it was kind of just the ideas behind it. And
John Coltrane, Anarchy Jazz, an album called Interstellar Space. Awesome. It's like conceptualized, like just 5 or 6 songs that each, like just the name of the planet, like Venus, Jupiter, Neo, just, you know, star signs and shit. And just Anarchy Jazz, like just going on. It's just, that's how I first got into it.
Like you'd go into Rocking Horse and see like shitloads of John Zorn CDs and all weird like Merzbow and stuff like that, and I saw like a Merzbow film clip on Rage once and was like sort of a bit shocked that that music even has film clips sort of.
Being a typical young adolescent 80s kid and having a Severed Heads record, and a lot of people in the 80s grew up with Severed Heads. And it's, you know, this sort of crazy early analog keyboards and cut up and a bit of early computer editing and stuff. To the extent where you listen to the record, but you didn't really want to listen to it. You wanted to jump the needle over it. My older brother giving me a Visage tape, which is, you know, really bad, goth band, I'm not sure, that got chewed. And it was the only tape that I ever owned. It was this big prize music. That was quite strange as well. And I didn't know it was tuned. I just thought that was the way it was.
Just seeing stuff in a shop that didn't look like, you know, a rock and roll record or whatever, and just like sort of picking it up and listening to it and going, wow, I can't believe that's actually, people spend money and release that like as a serious proposition. Like
Yeah, when you're
locally.
like 15, we used to listen to Dead Air on the
Yeah.
radio like late at night on like Wednesdays. And just hear like people doing stuff with like keyboards, like drone sort of sounds and stuff like that.
Dead Air was the precursor to atmospheric disturbances. It was run by Troy and another guy, David, I think his name is. And they used to play the more dark ambient and electronic things like Farmer's Manual and very avant-garde electronics. And then when I met him, I actually started getting him to play more and more free improvisation. I joined in with Troy whenever he'd do it. Like, you could tell the two different nights. One night it'd be dark ambient, the following week it'd be all these free improv bands from the 60s and the 70s.
Atmospheric Disturbances was a radio show in Footrable Z that ran for 2.5 years, that played sound art, experimental music, noise, any new music genre. And it was really successful. Because it was a community radio station, I was really interested in supporting experimental music and sound art in Brisbane. Primarily the stuff that musicians were recording in their bedrooms, because I found that to be really fascinating as far as a social document of if these people are recording things for no other reason except for maybe sharing with a few people, or just to record it for themselves as some sort of like diary document. I thought that expression was really important.
I don't do this for the money, I do it because I feel that if I don't do it, I'll go insane and jump off a bridge.
Half of it is because I like to really piss people off musically. But actually, lately I've been finding, and that was one of the reasons why I wanted to close down the Negative Trio group, was that people were actually really enjoying it, and that got on my nerves a bit. I thought it was I must have been out of touch, because I thought that it was a kind of music that would offend people. But it didn't.
I don't know, I guess it was just fun.
Fun?
It was more fun than anything.
Yeah, just that sort of thing when you go through, I think when you're a kid and you just draw pictures and you build shit with Lego. And
Maybe because I didn't have a mechanics, that I was still wanting to build things.
When I played with Lego as a child, I was very much into smashing it, creating things and then smashing them. That was my thing. Brain Lego is meant to be that, but sonic. Like, you take a concept and you smash it to pieces. You take, say, a sample of Britney Spears and you smash it to pieces, and then you make something from the smashed pieces.
I play the bass. Mind you, the way I play the bass is not a typical musical way I play the bass. I definitely, up strings and bash sticks against it. Basically trying to get away from commercial music construction.
I play analog synthesizer as well as trigger sample sound.
Just noise machines and stuff. Hand built by myself or others. Just basic circuits and stuff, like Radio Shack, Tandy's, kind of saws and drills.
My recent work where I've been working with on electromagnetic radiation, you can't hear, but there's this whole, I'm really fascinated with this whole like alternative reality that exists. Doing performances where I've been doing this Tai Chi performances around televisions and stuff, you get this common question, what have you done to the television? I'm saying, I haven't done anything. It's there as an ambient radiation. All I'm doing is putting inductors through the pickups, through the fields and picking it up. I mean, it's there. We're surrounded with electromagnetic radiation. I find that really fascinating. And a lot of the sound work, because electromagnetic radiation doesn't have a visual at all, being able to appreciate that world is limited. There's very few windows into that world, and sound's one of them.
Back in 1980, a band called Burnt Lung Cancer, and I'd started Negative Trio then, and the Decay Men, Distorter started. These are all, except for Distorter, all the rest were improvised, free improv. Distorter was just tapes that I started to edit up on cassette. Then I didn't do a lot until I came up to Brisbane back in 1989. I was living in Sydney before that. And I came up here and I met Troy Borden, and we started Crux back in about 96 with guitar and sax. He took me to a NADSAT gig, and that's where I met. Well, I saw Scott play, and after that I thought I'd like to do a project with him.
Yeah, I guess I've always been more interested in improvisational sorts of music. I don't know, maybe just because it's sort of fresher, what you do on the spot is can sort of, I don't know, show how you feel and stuff at that particular time.
It's got to be a vibe thing, and that's what improvisation does for me, is that it is necessarily the vibe of the moment.
It's not about the performance, and it's not about the it's not about the playing, but it's about the whole, and each sound that PH3 makes and what it does is necessary. And I don't think there are really hardly any wasted notes, sounds, hits in the most of what we do.
Yeah, I really like that sort of exercising quality of releasing, summoning demons. I don't know, I'm not sure which.
We'd sort of plan when we played, we'd sort of go, we'll build up to this, and then we'd have a few key points, but it was always improvised. Cameron had an ARP T600 or something, which was like a big analog synthesizer about that tall, and you attach a keyboard to it and you use it by plugging things into each other. It was broken, but it made heaps of cool noises. And we had an SK1 keyboard, which was a little sampling Casio keyboard, and I used tapes. I'd make stuff on computers or cut up bits of tapes from self-help tapes, and do stuff to them on computer and put them back to tape. And I had a pitch changeable tape player. And Laura had sort of toys and microphones, and she'd bang things and make tapes as well. And she did performance as well with a metal underwear thing and an angle grinder. I'd have a mixer with 4 things going into that, and then that going into the main thing. Cameron would have tapes as well, but we'd all sort of jump around on each other's things, we'd all take turns at the ARP, and it was sort of you'd play with something until you got bored and go and play with something else. But yeah, just lots of things all going at once.
diaspora, which is something that I do with Joe and Brian and Andrew Thompson. It's meant to be ritual music, and the basic purpose behind it is to keep everything very minimal, because I have a tendency to overload. And yeah, I think diaspora has less to do with what we're actually doing as how it's affecting the environment. It's making environmental sound. We're trying to change the space that people are within to be a different space, alter moods, that kind of thing.
I've been getting into drones, because I fixed the 60s, 70s organ, whatever the fuck it is over there. Okay, we've got the mixer over here, through which all the keyboards and the radio and the loop on the computer and tapes are going. Not that tape's playing at the moment. And then all that goes through there, so I can record. That's a tape, 4-track tape, and then into the amp, out to the speaker so I can hear it. And everything on that mixer goes through the delay pedal and then back in. So everything sort of comes out as one sound. Well, a drone is just a continuous sound, like what you get in a pipe organ, and you hold it and it goes "Mwah," like that. That's a drone, and in a basic form. You can get the drones come from everywhere. My fridge is making a drone at the moment. Air conditioners make drones. In one way, it's like the big blue canvas. It doesn't change. Like there's no real variation until you look at it. And okay, yes, there is variation, but the variation is very small. The variation is very subtle. So the drone just does its thing, and it just goes. It's just outward bound sound in some ways. It can be very warming. It's very hypnotic. It's sort of continuous like that, but within that form, there's an immense amount of variation that you have to listen for very closely. Or you'll sort of sit there and think, hey, that's changing. You get ghosts, like melodic forms suggest themselves, rhythm suggests itself. It's nice. It's relaxing. I've been getting into stuff, like other people's stuff recently, where the surface textures of the stuff can be quite harsh and noisy, but the sounds which generate that surface is very nice and often very melodic. I've been trying to work that into my own stuff, trying to make long, continuous things a bit like that. I do a lot of work with Andrew Thompson, who's in Toowoomba at the moment. We've been trying to get really good at doing that as a live duo. Rooms have been cleared quite frequently, actually. Okay, right. The people from the Courier Mail who came to see Cat Hope from Perth, she came over to play, and there'd been a bit of a buzz about noise or something. I don't know what the fuck that was all about. But there'd been this sort of mild interest in the Brisbane underground electronic music scene from the more mainstream media. So these people from the Courier Mail rocked up to this show that I was playing out with Michael and Andrew, and they left in we were the first band on. They left in 5 minutes, and they noted at the door that they were personally offended by what they'd seen. And I listened to the recording of that gig, and we were only just warming up.
Generally speaking, people have a knee-jerk reaction when hearing something outside of their frequency range. There was an article in the Time Off a while ago probably about a year ago, about how Triple Z are a pathetic radio station that don't cater for their audience. And this guy was complaining about the fact that he drove through the city and there was he was listening to 20 minutes worth of a guitar feeding back. Now that was my shift, and the 20 minutes of a guitar feeding back, I can't quite remember what it was, but I remember it was some local thing, and it was actually quite ambient. Like, it wasn't Sonic Youth going for it, you know, it was quite ambient, quite pleasant. He had a problem with it, and a few people from that article expressed, you know, concerns that listening to 20 minutes worth of a guitar feeding back was not what the public really wanted to hear. I honestly believe that there are people out there who would like to hear several hours of a guitar feeding back, and unfortunately I can't accommodate them with that, so they'll have to do with 20 minutes. Diaspora, my mum likes. She likes it because it's pleasant and she can put it on and turn it down and read a book.
The coolest thing I've ever heard about our music is from my mum, who said that she thought when we recorded Earth Noise under my house, she thought that the UFOs had landed and stuff.
My dad said it sounds like we don't know how to play our instrument.
Which is kind of true at the time.
That's what my old boss said as well.
Some people have said it made them feel like they were going to throw up. We got the PA turned off that time when we played at the Orient.
Beautiful Noise series. Live Noise event. Yeah, I think there's been 5 so far. Yeah, I was the stage manager and just organised all the acts, and was put on through Club Razorback and Underwood.
Mindscapes was a group of people who I met who were putting on events, music, art, performance, dance, film. Like, it was combining everything, and it was really decorated. It was sort of a big hippie thing at the start, but sort of different people started doing stuff with it. And then I sort of started helping out with Sally, and we put on a few and went down to Adelaide and put one on, and just sort of did more together, and sort of it went a bit more electronic and less acoustic, but still had dance and performance art and sculpture and stuff, and film was a big part of it.
Because I was getting a lot of these recordings and mainly focusing on bedroom artists, finding a lot of these recordings that were out in Brisbane, and wanting to encourage them more and get them more involved, and started a series called Deviations, which was going to be 2 performances once every 2 months. I thought I could squeeze that out, and that featured 3 artists each night, with Small Black Box, which is the monthly performances that I'm organising at the moment. I'm getting more fascinated by seeing, like, having a monthly occasion where you get to see everybody, you know, and other artists or audience that come along, and you know, you get to see them, you get to have a chat. What are you working on? What have you been doing? You know, stuff like that.
Now it's almost like, you know, I love the Small Black Box for like a meeting of minds.
Come to a Small Black Box gig or a Deviations gig or more before. And then a few months later, you probably find that a few of the artists that were doing individual stuff are now collaborating together.
I know when I started out doing this sort of stuff on and off, I thought I was probably the only person doing it in Brisbane. Yeah, everyone thinks that until they say, oh, you're doing it too, hey, that's cool. Mersbow did a gig over here in October '97. It's a great gig. There's I met a lot of people there. Like, there was a lot of people that I've seen around at things that weren't necessarily experimental things, but, you know, pretty fun, like fun parties or whatever, you know, weird shit. So I was like, okay, I'm going to talk to a lot of these people. I'm going to see who these people are. And a lot of them said, oh, yeah, do you make noise? And I'm like, yeah, I do actually. I was like, wow, cool. So exchange. Okay, I met Michael Norris that night. I met the guys from the Perfect Lovers that night. Cameron Tara. Yeah, I might have known them already. Back when they were doing the cunt stuff. Like, this whole crew.
And from now on, like, I see no reason to listen to anything other than CDs that can scam off people like you and him and yeah, like it's good stuff. So.
Mark Harwood, who does Thin Stages, says that Brisbane's the most active experimental music scene, but he doesn't get any customers out of it, which is really quite strange. Because a lot of his work, Thin Stage, of course, is an experimental music record shop in Melbourne, and a lot of his work is on email sales, and it just hasn't made any inroads into Brisbane. I keep on telling us because we're swapping our own music, we don't need a record store.
I think it's getting, I don't know, like you can see its influence in a lot of new electronic music now, like everything's getting a lot noisier, or it seems to be. And like Square Pusher played heaps of noise at his gig and all the kids loved it, and I think it's getting more popular.
Just keep new blood coming and coming, because we all start out somewhere, and there might be another kid, somebody in their first year of uni, like myself, who sees like Elysian, somebody who might go see the industry, go, oh, what about that?